What's up, everyone? James Lynch here, doing a quick video in between coaching today on this Saturday. I hope you guys are having a great weekend. Really interesting tidbit here from Championship Rounds. We'll read the tweet here. He says the official UFC Brazil page posted a then deleted fight announcement for Max Holloway and Charles Oliveira for the BMF title at UFC 324 in January. And this has happened before with the UFC where they posted announcements and then had to delete it. So I don't know if this is wrong or if this is something that is going to happen and maybe they were supposed to announce it at a different time. I'm not sure, but I will tell you personally, if you remember on my live streams over the last month, I've been talking about this fight, kind of giving little hints here and there. I couldn't officially announce it, but my understanding was this was going to be the main event for the card. This as of maybe a month ago, it seemed like Oliveira and Holloway was going to be the main event for the BMF title. And if you remember on my live stream, I mentioned, there would be a fight that I think people would like, but people wouldn't necessarily like it as well because of the whole BMF thing and it being the main event. And I think, I'm not alone here. A lot of people don't really care that much about the BMF belt, but yeah, we'll see if this is a fight that ends up coming to fruition. It does make a lot of sense actually, because you've got two of the top fighters in the weight class fighting each other, keeping busy. And there's a bit of history here too. These two fought a number of years ago. We'll talk about that in a sec, but just on the surface level, whether this happens on UFC 324 or a different card, this is a great fight and a fight that I think fans do want to see because of the way the first fight ended, which if you remember, that was on the Saskatchewan card. How long ago was that? That was back in almost 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, August of 2015. And this was at featherweight as well, right? This was a fight. It was actually one of the few times that Charles Oliveira made 145. And obviously Holloway was in the weight class too. And it ended in a neck and shoulder injury. I'm sure if you Google it, you can find the highlight, but it was just such a disappointment because there was such a build up to this card, to this fight, I should say. And it ends up ending very quickly with, you could see Oliveira hurt himself and he ends up losing that fight. And we didn't really get much of a fight. And if you look at the rest of the card, it wasn't that great of an event. So it was kind of riding on this fight and it ends up being super disappointing. So, look how young they look here, Oliveira and Holloway. I mean, again, 10 years ago. So pretty crazy that this is a fight that's now being discussed for 2025. And listen, something I was kind of thinking of before I made this video is, Max Holloway has a pretty strong case for being in the title picture at 155. He's got the knockout win over Justin Gaethje. He beat Poirier in his last fight, where I know a lot of people were counting him out in that fight. Yes, he has the one loss to Poirier in between there, but that was at 145. Him fighting at 155 now, which is sort of the understanding we have going forward. To me, he's right in the mix. And I know, again, people will say he's only got a couple fights at 155. But the fact of the matter is he's a former champion. He's currently has a knockout win over the guy that's going to be fighting for the actual interim title right now in Justin Gaethje. And he also has a win over a former title challenger in Dustin Poirier as well, too. So I think Holloway certainly has a great case here. And I love this as a stay busy fight for both guys. Now, on the flip side for Oliveira, if we look at what he's done, obviously losing to Ilia Topuria back in July, but he bounced back in a very good way against Gamrot. That was a very dominant performance, getting the second round submission there. Looks very good on the resume. He's right back in the mix. And you can, make the argument that, yeah, he lost to Topuria, but I mean, Topuria's knocking everyone out. He's knocking out Volk. He's knocking out Holloway, who'd never been knocked out prior to him fighting Topuria. So I think this, if Oliveira can get a win, if he can get some revenge over Max Holloway for losing all that long ago, he's right back in the mix too. And I know, again, he's 36, Max Holloway's 33. It's a really interesting matchup, and I hope it comes to fruition. I mean, you add this to UFC 324, this is going to look like a really good card. It's a solid event. One of the things I mentioned in my video a couple weeks ago is that, kind of how things were looking was it was a good card. It wasn't a card that really signaled like this historic event, which you would kind of expect for a new TV deal, right? I brought up the fact that in the Fox deal, we had the heavyweight title fight between Junior Dos Santos and Cain Velasquez. On the ESPN card, that first event featured Ngannou against Cain Velasquez as well. So they always kind of bring out the big guns, and I think this card is solid. But is this a historic card when you're looking back on it? Listen, Waldo and Derek Lewis is a fun fight. Is that a fight that is pay-per-view worthy? I don't know about that. O'Malley and Song's good. Harrison and Nunes is going to be great. Gaethje Pimblett, say what you want. I don't think they need to do the interim title like I've mentioned in other videos. So, I mean, yeah. Pretty good event, but you add an Oliveira and Holloway on this card, suddenly it gets to that next level of a much better card. But I don't think this is going to be on UFC 324, despite this tweet being out here and them having to delete it. just because why wouldn't they announce it? Like, what's the holdup? That's just my guess. I don't have any insight into this. I do think this fight ends up getting made. I just wonder if they move it to a different card because, you know, like I mentioned before, when the UFC tends to stack events, they're giving themselves very limited options going forward if they want to make solid cards. I mentioned, you know, the card we had recently with UFC 322. That was a pretty stacked event. They could have spread the wealth a little bit more on that one and made, you know, 323 a little bit better, or, you know, some of the other cards going forward. So I do wonder if they look at that and go, maybe we'll save that fight for a different card, right? Because 325 right now, I mean, 325, they should really just put Movsar Evloev and Lerone Murphy on that card. But right now, the only fight we know about is Volk and Lopez. You add an Oliveira and Holloway to this card, suddenly it's a lot more interesting, right? Because let's be honest, a lot of people are not happy with this Volkanovski and Lopez fight. It's going to be a fun fight, but, you know, let's be honest, a lot of people feel like Lopez doesn't deserve that shot. So, you know, we'll see if this ends up coming to fruition. Again, you know, if this does end up happening, I will do a separate video, or I'll write something in the description of this video if it ends up happening. But, you know, again, UFC's not putting this out there for nothing. It's not like someone hacked the account and was like, hey, we're going to throw this fight out there. I don't think that's happening. Now, as far as a pick in this fight goes, it's going to be interesting because, again, Holloway's 3 years younger than Oliveira. You know, Holloway, for the most part, pretty durable. Like I said, just the one loss there to Topuria. You know, Oliveira's used to finishing a lot of his opponents. He doesn't, you know, he only has 4 wins by decision in his entire career. Does Oliveira win a decision over Holloway over a 5-round fight? Probably not. I would probably favor Holloway here because of the age, the durability. And I know some people will look at Holloway and be like, well, he's got one loss by submission, which, by the way, was his UFC debut against Dustin Poirier way back in February of 2012. I mean, since then, Holloway has yet to be submitted. So I don't know if Oliveira does it that way. Could Oliveira knock him out? Probably not. He's got knockout power, but Holloway has shown to have a pretty granite chin. And again, Topuria is the only guy that seems to be able to crack the code of knocking out anyone. So I would mention that as far as a reason I don't think Oliveira would win. Now, saying that, Holloway doesn't exactly have a lot of stoppage wins either. The Gaethje win was a 5th round finish there. A lot of his wins do come by decision as well. I think if I'm picking this fight, if it does end up coming to fruition, just as an early pick, hypothetically, I would go Holloway decision here. I think he is durable enough to get it done. And I think Holloway's looked really good in the last couple fights. And that Poirier fight showed that he's right at the top at lightweight. Even though he was successful at 45, I think at 55, him, you know, being in this lightweight frame now, I think he's going to perform a lot better. And again, I think he should be in the mix as well. And I think if Holloway gets this win, you know, we got to start talking about him in the mix of, you know, the title challengers for this weight class. I really believe that. And, you know, if we're comparing resumes right now, Max Holloway has a better resume at lightweight right now than Paddy Pimblett does. Paddy Pimblett's beat Michael Chandler. Holloway's beat Gaethje and Poirier. Now, obviously, if Pimblett beats, you know, Gaethje, he would be the number 1 contender, although I still think Arman should be in the mix. But you know what the UFC's doing there. They're, you know, trying to move along without Arman, it seems, in the meantime anyways. So yeah, I hope this fight happens. It makes a ton of sense. No issues for me on the matchmaking side. My only little small thing is we don't need the BMF belt anymore. To me, it's like, we did that a couple years ago. It was fun with Masvidal and Diaz, and then we did it again with Holloway and Gaethje for UFC 300, but I just don't care about the BMF belt. It's like, it's kind of meaningless in my opinion. Like, why can't we just have a fight? Same thing with Gaethje and Paddy, by the way. That doesn't need to be for an interim title. To me, you only do an interim title or a vacant title if the champion's going to be out like more than a year. I mean, there's no guarantee Topuria is going to be out for more than a year. And in this case, why can't we just have this fight as it is without it? Like, make it 5 rounds, but it doesn't need to be with the BMF title. So anyways, let me know in the comments what you think of this potential fight. Do you think it makes sense? How good of a card would UFC 324 be if they added it? Or would you rather see this on another card? Let me know all that. Also, let me know your early prediction if it doesn't end up happening. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, at Lynch on Sports, as I get the little graphic up there. Appreciate you guys tuning in. I'll try and keep you posted if this fight does end up happening. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll talk to you guys later. Yeah, really appreciate it, and I'll talk to you guys soon as I'm trying to end this thing here. Take care.